Something unusual is happening far out in space right now. Scientists have given it a name, 3I Atlas, but that doesn't mean they understand what it is or what it's doing. In fact, this thing is strange in almost every way. Its shape is strange, the way it moves is strange, and it's made of materials that are also unusual. And even though scientists have been watching it for a while, there's now a new idea floating around. What if it has been watching us for even longer? Let's start with some recent photos taken of 3I Atlas. These images came from a group of astrophotographers who were working in a very remote desert area of Namibia, located in southern Africa. This place is already one of the darkest places on Earth, which makes it ideal for viewing the night sky. But during a recent lunar eclipse, when Earth blocks the sun's light, the sky got even darker, giving them the perfect conditions to capture clear pictures of space. Out of everything they could have chosen to photograph, they aimed their cameras at 3I Atlas, and what they saw surprised them. The object was glowing a bright green color in the sky. That's not something scientists expected, and so far there's no clear reason why it would appear green. Right now, experts believe that 3I Atlas is an interstellar comet. That means it likely came from another star system far outside our own. It behaves like a typical comet in some ways. It has a glowing cloud of gas and dust around it, called a coma, and a tail that stretches behind it. But 3I Atlas also acts differently in ways that are hard to explain. For example, green comets aren't rare. We understand what causes them to glow that way. It usually happens when carbon-based molecules in the coma are hit by ultraviolet light from the sun. The key chemical here is something called diatomic carbon, C2, which is just two carbon atoms stuck together. When sunlight hits C2, it can make the comet appear green. But here's the strange part. After studying 3I Atlas with some of the world's most powerful telescopes, scientists found that it doesn't have these C2 molecules. They're missing. Still, the comet is glowing green anyway. So what's causing the color? Nobody really knows. Could it be aliens with a love for green lights? Probably not, but who knows? What scientists do know is that 3I Atlas has a lot of carbon dioxide, CO2, in its coma, which is very different from C2. CO2 can make the comet very bright, but it doesn't turn things green. Plus, there's way more CO2 than water vapor in this object, which is odd, because most comets have a lot more water than carbon dioxide. But that's not the only strange thing going on with 3I Atlas. Scientists have also found that its coma, the cloud of gas and dust around it, is filled with metal, especially nickel. Now, finding metal in a comet isn't shocking by itself. Many comets contain metals, and sometimes those metals get released as gas when the comet gets really hot near the sun.
Here's the odd part. 3I Atlas is not anywhere near the sun. In fact, the nickel was first discovered when it was still between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter, which is way too far out for that kind of metal to vaporize. So how is all this nickel getting into the coma? There's no solid explanation unless, just as a theory, you imagine that 3I Atlas isn't a comet at all, but some kind of alien spacecraft. That sounds wild, but it's worth noting that real rocket engines often use nickel heavy metal alloys, and when they fire, they release exhaust that includes both nickel and carbon dioxide, and 3I Atlas has both. Of course, this probably isn't proof of alien technology, but the oddities don't stop there. Another strange thing is how steadily 3I Atlas is moving. Ever since it was first spotted back in May, it's been cruising through the solar system without any major changes in speed or direction. This might seem normal, but for a comet, it's actually really unusual. Usually, when comets get closer to the sun, their icy surfaces start to heat up and turn straight into gas, a process called sublimation. This causes jets of gas to shoot out, kind of like small thrusters, which push the comet around and change its path. This effect is called non-gravitational acceleration, or NGA. In the case of 3I Atlas, we've seen clear signs that it is sublimating. It even formed a small tail pointing toward the sun, which has since grown longer and now points away, just like we'd expect. But despite all this activity, it's barely shifting course. On average, it's only changing direction or speed by about 1.5 kilometers per day. To put that in perspective, let's look at 2I/Borisov, another interstellar object. It was moving around much more, changing direction by over 100 kilometers per day. That's almost 100 times more than 3I Atlas. Maybe 3I Atlas is just really big and harder to push around. That's a fair guess. But consider this. Hale-Bopp, one of the biggest comets we've ever seen, is about the same size or even larger, and it's still moved about 10 kilometers a day due to sublimation. And then there's Oumuamua, which had days where its movement changed by over 1,000 kilometers. So even when we compare 3I Atlas to other objects from outside our solar system, it's behaving differently. Its path is so stable and consistent that it almost feels like it's being guided, as if it's on a set course. There's likely a natural reason for all this, but for now, that reason is still a mystery. Now, just imagine for a second if 3I Atlas was actually some kind of ship being controlled. That would mean it's not only able to stay on course, but could also change direction whenever it wants. Based on what we know right now, it's expected to swing around to the opposite side of the sun from Earth as it moves through the inner solar system. That means we probably won't get a close look at it, and it won't get one of us either. Unless, of course, it somehow slows down as it passes the sun and ends up waiting for us on the other side. Sounds crazy, right? But here's a theory that's a little too interesting to ignore. Have you ever heard of something called the WOW signal? It was discovered back in 1977 by astronomers at Ohio State University using an instrument called the Big Ear Radio Telescope, basically a giant ear that listens for unusual signals coming from space. One day, it picked up something so unexpected that the scientist who found it literally wrote "wow" next to the data. That's how it got its name.
What they detected was a super strong, narrow radio signal that lasted for about 72 seconds and came from deep space. It wasn't from any satellites, planets, or anything made by humans, and it didn't come from the sun either. The only thing we know for sure is that it came from somewhere in the direction of the constellation Sagittarius. What made it even more fascinating was how much energy it would have taken to produce such a powerful, focused signal across interstellar space. If an alien civilization had sent it, they would need to have technology capable of using the energy of an entire star. On the other hand, if it was something natural, it must have come from some strange process happening inside a star itself. But here's the most interesting part: the frequency of the signal. It matched something called the hydrogen line, which is a specific radio frequency, 1420 megahertz, naturally produced by hydrogen atoms, the most common element in the universe. Scientists have long said that if someone wanted to send a simple message that any advanced civilization would recognize, using that frequency would make perfect sense. And in the nearly 50 years since, nothing quite like the WOW signal has ever been picked up again. Now, here's where things get even stranger. Astronomers have traced the path of 3I Atlas backward through space. And guess where it seems to have come from? The same general direction, the constellation Sagittarius. The very same place linked to the WOW signal. That coincidence has made some people wonder, what if the WOW signal didn't come from some distant star system after all? What if it came from 3I Atlas back when it was still at the far edge of our solar system beyond Pluto in 1977? Maybe it was sending out a signal to announce its arrival. Of course, that's just a theory, one that's never been proven and probably never will be. But it also hasn't been disproven either, and that's what makes this whole thing so fascinating. Strange objects like 3I Atlas remind us that space is full of mysteries we don't yet understand. The universe is vast and unpredictable, and sometimes the truth really might be out there, making its way toward us. Thank you for joining us on this remarkable journey through the story of 3I-ATLS. Our universe reveals its wonders one shimmering trace at a time. Stay curious, keep looking up, and together let's continue to explore the infinite possibilities the cosmos has to offer. The next great discovery could be just beyond the horizon, and we'll be here to share the awe with you.